Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in PUBG Mobile. Today, I am super excited. Continuing the Pro Tips series, I have Locknarb on the channel. He is a Nova Pro PUBG player. How you doing, man?
How's it going, Ash?
It's going fantastic, dude. We were just talking a little bit off air, and I was already so excited. I was like, let's just get into the recording because you have so much to talk about here. You are a former top 500 Overwatch player. You've been competitive in almost every PC FPS shooter game in the genre. You're a mainstay on the roster, on the Nova roster. That's changed actually a lot in the past. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Anything I missed there?
I think you pretty much got it. Overwatch, I was rank 1 in squads on the PC version of PUBG. But yeah, pretty much that's it, man.
Awesome, man. Well, excited. You're going to be a wealth of knowledge. So let's just get started with, you have played the mobile PUBG. Now, normally you're a PC pro, but I know that a lot of the content and the strategy advice that you have is going to be relevant to both. Do you think there are any main strategic differences in PUBG mobile versus PUBG on PC?
I think the more people play on the mobile, they'll develop better mechanics like moving and shooting at the same time. But that's just the mechanical side. The thought process on mentality inside the game is going to remain the same.
Awesome. Well, that makes this video good because it will still be relevant for mobile. I wanted to actually start out. We're going to talk a little bit about how to get better in advanced tips from a pro player to the rest of us on how to get better in PUBG. But before we get to that, I kind of wanted to ask you, just out of curiosity, about the pro scene, especially in like squad and group play. Are there special roles that each player kind of takes on in the squad, or is it pretty much just every man for himself, or working together as a team, of course?
Yeah, so it's not every man working for himself. You're trying to organize as much as you possibly can to limit the RNG. And so what we have is an IGL, perhaps, someone who is the in-game leader, that's abbreviated. And this is primarily the guy who makes the shot calls, where you got to go, how you should play it. And he overlooks the remaining 3 players. The other 3 players, perhaps, they could be a fragger, they could have a support role, or they could also co-IGL, so they could co-captain. And to touch up on the fragger, it's the guy who goes in and, has a lot of kills. They primarily focus on their mechanics and getting as much kills as possible. So you might have somebody who shoots a little bit better than you on the mobile version, and, maybe they don't like thinking as much. That you could term as the fragger, the guy who goes in and does it.
Gotcha.
The support, someone who might not be as mechanically good, but they're very smart and they will lag behind the team in case you get ambushed, so they can play off angles and help the team out. And then obviously the co-IGL, you just have a co-captain, so it's fairly simple.
What role are you most comfortable in?
I co-IGL, but I do want to start getting into a fragger role. Our team is kind of transitioning away from having one primary IGL, and we're trying to incorporate everybody's voice so we can make better decisions. Because putting it all on one IGL, it is super tough. You need to, be very composed.
Just out of curiosity too, when you're landing, right, like early game as a squad in a competitive match, how does that differ from just a casual play or even competitive play that's not on a pro level? Normally it's just like, okay, we're squadding up, boys, we're gonna hit the school or whatever. What is your mindset early game as a squad on the pro level?
Yeah, so pretty much every team on the PC version, we kind of respect everyone's drop spots.
Okay.
It kind of switches up versus EU and NA and different regions as well, like Asia. So you're not really comfortable if they drop on your spot, you'll move. But it's trying to avoid conflict, avoid the RNG of someone picking up, an M4 before you, and trying to focus more on the late game, which everyone wants to win. Everyone wants chicken dinners.
Gotcha. So let's say that you geared up, everybody respected each other's landing spot, drop shot, and then what are you doing from there? What is your first kind of modus operandi? Are you going to head to another populated area? Are you going to try to carve out some area within the safe zone? Like, what is your next task?
Yeah, yeah. So there are different settings in the game, but we have tournament settings that are quite different from how the casual player base sees it.
Mm-hmm.
But to put it in layman's perspective, we have a circle that spawns, and then you know where the center is going to be. And so while you're looting, while my team loots, we kind of create a plan on how we should approach that specific game, and dependent on what happens to the next circle,
Okay.
we anticipate that, and it gets much more complex on like trying to rotate without dying, and if you should take a fight earlier on. There's so many things that a team has to make, so many decisions.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love how it just becomes almost a totally different game at the pro level. What do you think that, the layman's like me, right? What do you think that we can pick up on how we should change our play style, especially since we're talking about squads right now, in a squad match? Do you recommend to get better that we take on more of the pro level tactics, or is it just all kind of different out the window when you're playing in a competitive kind of random queue?
Yeah, like, so the settings, and this is what it comes down to, are a tad bit different, where the circles are shifting less. There's more time for you to fight other teams, and that's what it promotes. It promotes more of a fighting mentality, and that's the fun part with PUBG is, you don't want to just drop in a spot where you can just loot up. And to say, if you want to get better at this game, obviously study the pro scene, study how some of the landing spots are held and how players are rotating. But really, if you want to get better, you need to focus on your own mechanical skills. So, whether you're playing on a keyboard and mouse, or if you're playing with, your phone, it stays the same on, adjusting your sensitivity to the appropriate comfortability, to being more comfortable, pretty much, and tapping as much heads as you possibly can, because if you can become a slayer, and then you can like develop the brain. I mean, that's what I would recommend to anybody if they want to become more competitive, if they want to get better. Focus on your shot, focus on taking as many fights as possible. And then, if it comes to it and you want to make the next step, study how games played, how some teams play. And if you want to pick a team, you want to follow their strategy, by all means, go for it.
That's great advice. Do you have touch on so many things? I have so many questions running through my head here. Let me start by asking you. You mentioned aim, like just getting better, getting into action, getting that action, and just getting reps, behind you. Do you have any? It's probably like the most frequently asked question, I guess, especially by newer players, is how do you improve your aim? How can you get better at spotting people and then hitting them quickly once you spot them? Any kind of general tips for that?
That's the $1,000,000 question,
right?
Because even me, I play this game 90 hours a week. I still feel like I'm not hitting people enough, so it's a slow progression, and if you really want to emphasize on working on your aim, practice 360s with your character model. Try and swipe. Make it so you are so comfortable that you're looking at an inanimate object like a fence post, and then you want to be able to tap directly onto it within a moment's notice. That's what people do to kind of warm up. Obviously there's going to be some newer game modes that might hit the mobile version much sooner, like war mode, and different customs. Hopefully you guys can get those. And those are very good in warming up and trying to focus on your aim, because jumping into a game, dying, then jumping into another game, dying, it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're trying to isolate one particular thing.
Yeah,
But
that's great
yeah,
advice. Now go on. Sorry.
but yeah, so that's the difficulty in it. No one enjoys that. No one enjoys going back to the main lobby and restarting it. But, you know, if you have the drive, you will achieve better aim. And
Yeah.
whether or not that means you're dropping, dying, sooner or later you will drop onto somebody and they will have, you know, an M4, you'll have a pistol and you'll kill them. You know, it's just like it takes time, but you're gonna eventually get up to the point where you're more comfortable with, you know, with your aim.
Yeah, and when you talk about the sensitivities in the settings, would you recommend doing just that, what you just mentioned, just, you know, finding that inanimate object and then just practicing locking into it on different sensitivities and then finding your comfort zone?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest that.
Okay.
On the mobile version, people's fingers are different. They work different. You know, that's how it is with sensitivities. So in my eyes, and this is something I do with a keyboard and mouse, is if you can properly 360 with ease, and that's just in your head. If you're comfortable with 360ing, it makes it that much easier, because say someone's directly behind you and you need to turn, you know,
Yep, you'll be ready. Yeah.
you're 100% ready. And so that's another way of like trying to isolate, you know, your hand movement or your sensitivity.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask you a few questions about like kind of solo play versus duos and squads, how to get better at each mode. But before I do, just out of curiosity, what is your kind of go-to setup if you could have any weapons in the game?
Yeah. So right now, a new patch had just hit the PC version, and they nerfed M4s, Scars, M16s, all
Ouch.
across the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, the AK is extremely strong close range, so that would be my, you know, my close range weapon. And for long range, it would be up to the M4 or the Scar L still. So I'm
Okay.
still comfortable with the 5.56 ammo type.
Okay, yeah, that's my favorite too. I actually recently had a really good player on the channel, and he said something surprising to me. He said that he almost always fires on auto, even with rifles at mid to long range, which normally I never really heard anybody else doing. What about you? Do you ever use auto? In what situations do you use auto versus burst versus single fire?
Yeah, so auto is extremely strong on the mobile version. And
Okay.
this is the difference between the PC and mobile. Mobile, the aim assist is incredibly good for auto. You spray it, and it's very easy to adjust your shot. I'm not telling people at home to, you know, just auto,
Yeah,
like
but yeah.
500 meters away. No, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But, you know, 100 meters, 50 meters, try autoing.
Mhm.
And if anything above that, like 150, 200, you know, single tap, you know, it's easier, and it's much easier to control and much easier to adjust for missed shots.
All right, great advice there. And kind of transitioning into solo play tips, and you know, what were there any parts in your kind of trajectory as a pro player that the kind of light bulb moments where you're just like, wow, I wish I had known this, or I wish I had done this differently early on, or really anything that you felt, okay, I'm getting better at this moment. Again, whether it be solo or group play.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm always improving, and I'm trying to figure out how best I can improve within the time I'm given. And so right now, I feel like I want my aim to be near perfect. And so when it comes to that, I am practicing my aim. Back then, what I would have told myself when I was first starting out in the scene was to really, like I explained to these guys, is you want to improve your mechanical skill. You want to get to the point where you are extremely comfortable with your aim, and then work on the brains of the side. Don't be afraid to fight people. You see a lot of streamers that just drop school. They'll drop Hacienda. I don't know if you guys still have Miramar, but it should be coming up.
Yeah, so next update, I think.
Yeah, and so once that comes out, Hacienda, and that is like the school per se for Miramar. And what that comes down to is, you know, just getting in as much fights and as much uncomfortable positions, because the easier you can do that, the easier you can build that like stress level and be able to power through that, the better player you are. Because there are some times in these competitive games where we've got our backs against the wall, my teammates and I, and, you know, if I was able to react better during that given time, if I would practice better by putting myself in more uncomfortable positions, like dropping school, dropping Hacienda, I would definitely be a better player.
Okay, and when you talk about kind of knowing how to react to something you just said, something that happens to everybody, and I'm sure happens at the pro level too, is you'll be, you know, either in transit or kind of fortified somewhere or just looting, and you get hit from somewhere and you can't identify where you're getting hit from. What is like your go-to kind of habits when that happens to you? Obviously, you'll see where the fire's coming from. Then what? Yeah. What do you do? Do you go prone? Do you run? Do you try to take cover? Do you fire? What do you do in that situation?
That's a really good question. So one thing I'd like to touch up on is a lot of bad players, what they do is they go prone.
Yeah.
Or do not go prone.
I've been guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you do not go prone, because it makes you such an easier target for someone shooting at you. Whatever you do, what I'll typically do is, if you're wearing earbuds or even a headset, you know, with your mobile, just move, like swipe your finger so you can see what direction you're getting shot at. Once you can distinguish like exactly where you're getting shot at, being able to tell that one piece of information, you can make the next step more appropriate to saving your life. And so what I do, like to specifically answer your question, is I will swipe my mouse I'll swipe it 360, and you can hear the sound adjust on your mobile version. You can also hear it on PC, maybe a little bit better on PC, but the directional sound is still there.
Yeah.
And that is what's important, is being able to distinguish right to left. And so if you can do that, if you can swipe 360 or if you can swipe 180, you'll get a better range of where, like, specifically that person is, and so you can play better against that.
And if you still can't like, say you have like a range now, you kind of know where they are, but you still can't locating. Maybe they're sniping you, or maybe they're just yeah. What do you do in that situation? Do you kind of try to take cover from that point of view, or do you ever just fire into where you think they might kind of be, just try to buy yourself some more time? Or
yeah, so always aim for cover.
Okay.
And so if you find a rock, if you find a tree, as soon as you get to that tree, rock, whatever piece of cover you have, you'll hear the bullet shoot, and it'll probably shoot the tree, the rock, whatever piece of cover you're at. Just 360, or not 360, but just walk around whatever piece of cover you're at, see where the bullet's fired, and if you see exactly where that bullet's fired, it gives you an easier perspective on where you're being shot at from. And so once you can distinguish that, you can make two decisions. You can either run the opposite way, or you peek for a little bit just to see if you get shot at again. And if you do, well, you know exactly where you got shot at on that piece of the tree. You move slightly over or slightly to the left or the right, and then you know you can gouge that better. One thing I would say is, you're getting shot from a city and you don't know specifically what window you're getting shot from. That's much more difficult to distinguish. And so what I'll typically do if I want to locate what building I'm getting shot from is I'll isolate buildings. So say I'm on top of a hill and I'm looking down in the city. What you can possibly do, and say you're getting shot, what you possibly do is duck, move to another angle so they can't immediately pre-aim you.
Mm-hmm.
Go back up, look at one building. You don't see him in that building, duck, go to a different angle, look at the next building. Obviously, it's not ideal, but it's never ideal looking into a city and trying to distinguish where the heck you're getting shot from.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're just clearing one area at a time while trying to protect yourself in the meantime.
Yeah.
I got 2 questions for you, Lochnar, before we end things off. Thank you for being so generous with your time, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Number 1 is, give me your priorities when you first land. So obviously you want a rifle, you want guns, whatever. What are your like top things that you want to get immediately, maybe kind of in order?
Yeah.
If in a perfect world, you know?
Yeah. Perfect world, you're going to pick up level 2 vest, level 2 helmet. I mean, if you can find those 2, you're in a good situation. With whichever gun, you know, you can pick up an Uzi, you can pick up an UMP. Doesn't really matter if it's an SMG. Obviously, if I could pick up an M4 with a 4X, that's the best, you know. I mean, you're looking pretty much anywhere, you got eyes on somebody, and that's what I would appreciate if I'm dropping on a spot with a 4X.
Okay, cool. And final circle tips. Let's say solo queue, you versus one other person. What is the best tactic? Do you try to identify where they are and kind of rush them, or wait things out? What do you tend to do in those situations?
Yeah, so it really depends, but if you have an understanding on where that player is, you know, maybe he opened fire and he missed a couple of shots at you, or he maybe killed the 3rd guy. You always need to try and outmaneuver or outflank, because they're doing the exact same thing. So with that in perspective, if you are on the edge of the circle and he still has no idea where you're at, try and outmaneuver, try and surprise him, because obviously the worst case scenario, if you miss all of your shots on the guy, he has to still adjust. You know, you've got that element of surprise. I know a couple of people jump, like they'll actually jump because they got freaked out.
Yeah,
So it still gives you that amount of time to, you know, even take it without surprise, a 1v1, you know.
So do you, let's say the circle, you know, there's one circle left or something like that. Are you trying to position there before your opponent, or are you trying to kind of get a gauge on where he is and moving at the final moment?
Yeah, so you obviously, so if you know where he is, you can outmaneuver him. But if you don't, right, that's the tricky part. And you need to play the game of patience. You need to, you know, you can either sit prone, you can crouch, but you need to be able to distinguish where he is at. And that is the biggest thing. So if you have no idea where the last player is, absolutely zero idea, just play patient. Watch your own angle, make sure he can't outmaneuver you, have enough cover, and once the zone finalizes and it once it ends on the little star, I don't know if you've ever gotten to that point, Ash, but there's a star, and if it moves to you, great. If it doesn't, it might move to him. Play it as slow as you possibly can. Avoid getting surprised. You don't want to be the person that gets surprised. So if you can, try and eliminate every single part of that minuscule of a circle, the very small circle, of where he could be, and then push, you know, because obviously, you know, you could be just aggressive and go for it, but this is to be helpful to some of the people who are still struggling to get that last kill for the chicken dinner.
Yeah, that's great advice too, because it's something that I've struggled with too. I've had, of course I've won my fair share of matches, but at the same time I do feel like I probably have a negative win rate when it's final two. So it's something I need to improve in my game.
Worst.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know whether it's the stress or the anxiety of the situation or just being bad at one-on-one combat, to be honest. But it's something that I definitely, again, need to improve in my game. But, dude, Locknarb, you've been amazing. I feel like I could ask you like an hour's worth of more questions, so would love to have you back on the channel at some point, man.
Yeah, not a problem, Ash. I appreciate this opportunity, and I hope anybody listening at home, if you do have questions, feel free to contact Ash or me, and we can get it on.
Yeah, is there a Twitter or something that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, it's Twitter /Locknarb. Very simple.
Awesome.
You can ask me. You could also ask Ash, and then he'll have me back on the show for next time,
That'd be fantastic. And I'll include all the information, guys, in the description below for his Twitter and whatnot. And again, if you have any questions, drop a comment, and maybe we'll do kind of a viewer Q&A type thing in the future. But hey, again, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem, Ash. Take care.
All right, guys. Yeah, you too, man. That's going to do it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Hope you learned a few tips to help you out in your next PUBG match. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Huge shout out to Bren Chong, my YouTube partner. Check out his information as well in the description below. And as always, take care, guys.